ordinance, the zoning part of our ordinance, right? So I guess
It's about to hit Jackson with the beanbag. Not surprised. I'll take care of this beanbag.
It's good running videotape. It's like 40 minutes to get.
wow.
Yeah, so it's not fair.
Yeah.
Want to grab a seat and bring it back or
We have to
something?
work out something different with that. If you can just go to the website and bring up Article 13.
It's an awful bench.
No, that's what, no. Both ways, it gets on the screen. I'll do it. How come that's not on the screen?
Plug in.
Do we have it set in like two screen mode or something?
I'm going to slide a PowerPoint on here. Unfortunately.
Oh,
That's why.
you know what? That's what's going on.
That's why.
Here, you can have a screen come up on the grid. You can minimize that. That bar, a little bar. No, don't do that. Minimize that. And then right mouse click on the screen.
Well, this is.
No, I don't. Wait, down there on the lower left, there's all those little, the little E's. Bring up the right E, maybe. That's not good either. No, it might be this one.
What do you?
Well, it won't go to the other screen. I use Mac and not Windows these days.
Click on the Windows.
Click on Explorer, the E. That'll bring your internet up.
Right, but what's happening now, I've got the Explorer internet up on this screen, and I've got the background up on this. Okay, so if you know how to do this burning window left.
Windows.
What?
Is it something, a document that you have saved on there?
Yeah, I haven't, well, no, it's just the
You
internet.
were trying to.
Oh. I have Windows 8.
You have to drag it to the right side of the,
Yeah, drag it to the right side of the screen.
or left.
Yeah, didn't you used to work for Microsoft?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how they do it on XP, but I don't have the latest version, so.
I just had a PowerPoint demonstration up. We're fine.
The Jacksons.
That's all right. Well, internet. No, that's not going to do anything.
Just do a restart.
Just restart, it'll pick it up. So all we're doing with the Article 13 is we've taken out some light industrial uses out of the zoning, the area that used to be the Leon Williams Mill. That's the biggest change in Article 13, which is technically a change of zoning. And the reason for that was taking the light industrial uses out of it is because it's an industrial park, and we didn't want somebody to come in and ask for a permit for, like, for example, a beauty shop, you know, and put like a beauty shop in there, and the next thing you know, somebody wants to come in and use it for its intended purpose, which is some industrial use, like say a sawmill or some other, you know, maybe recycling reclamation facility or something like that, you know, and then have this light industrial, light industry commercial, like a beauty shop owner say, well, wait a minute, I don't want to have that heavy industrial use in there. And that was really the reason why. So we took those light commercial uses out of that. That was the biggest thing. The next thing in Article 13 that we did, we had two different categories. One thing was a category for industrial and commercial uses. And then the other one were kind of they also got called categories for resource uses, and all we did is just change the name of the resource uses from categories to groups, just because it was just easier. So people knew they were resource groups, and then they were commercial and industrial categories. So it was just a wording shift to make it easier for people to understand when we talked about the different types of activities, you know, what you were in. Another thing we did was down on in this zoning area that includes Scott Point Road, the Brookoff Road, and up here along the line a little bit. There was a part there that talked about we prohibited somebody from putting in a large commercial marina. Okay, but we didn't prohibit somebody from coming in a nonprofit. You know, we have both commercial and industrial uses, and we also have nonprofit uses. So in the nonprofit uses, we took out the part where you could put in a commercial or a marina for a nonprofit that was really large. You know, because it didn't. The reason for not having the commercial marina not allowed in there is because the area is too small. So we decided, why would you want to have a nonprofit put in a commercial marina down along Scott Point Road or back here on the Brookoff Road? So that was really, those were the changes there. And then we also, the last thing, we also expanded, you know, put in a couple extra things because we wanted to just make sure that people understood that they were allowed. We put in like if somebody wanted to put in like slope style skiing or rappelling tower, we actually, even though the original ordinance that we have allows it because it does say, you know, use similar to it, it's not restrictive. We just added some additional words in there to kind of go with the concepts that people are talking about. We want Clifton to be used more as an outdoor recreational type of opportunity, so we put in additional wording in there to kind of highlight that type of activity. So those were the... All right. Well, imagine it's on the right one.
It's still high.
Yeah, we'll go to the right. Because it's not in that workspace. That's a different workspace, that's all. So, I grabbed the wrong ones. You didn't grab the new ones. So here's the categories that we had before, and all we did is change these words from the word category to the word group. And then as you come down through here, like I was explaining, these light impact retail shops, they're allowed in GMA1, which is covered this larger area, but they're not allowed in the, they're not allowed over there. And actually what I can do here is I'll bring up that map. Here. So this yellow area is what we're talking about. Let me go back one. So GMA 1A is this village area. So GMA 1 is the whole yellow area, which was the area that we were proposing for more development back in 2010. You know, obviously encompassing these areas which are already somewhat developed in their subdivisions, and then the village area, the area that's most densely developed, you know, down where we are right now, is that little speckled area. That's GMA 1A. So essentially, what happens is we took the retail shops out of that from this. So that was.
Can you go back?
Sure.
Okay, you got the mill in a different color.
Right, that's the GMA 1B, the enterprise zone. 1B is the enterprise zone.
Okay.
And so it's all one, and that's 1A is this area that we broke out of the village here. 1B is this mill area. And so these light impact retail shops are not allowed in 1B because of like what I was just describing. Just imagine a light retail shop comes in there that has a lot of business with people who are wearing flip-flops, and the next thing you know, you want to put in something industrial, which is what we would like to have in there, and that's how we targeted that property, and that's why.
Is there a definition
Yeah.
besides the light impact retail shops, or examples?
Yeah, small retail shops include the following and those similar: convenience variety stores without fuel service, florist gift souvenir shops, antique shop, craft supplies, etc.
Okay.
And as we go down through, you'll see the different types of uses, because back up here into the categories before. Let's see if we're going to get to where you want to get to on those. General industrial uses will be assessed for, it's 13.13, will be assessed for impact and permitting approval requirements down in table 13C. So we get 13C. Okay, let's go down to 13C. So there we go, 1341. So it's bulk oil and fuel storage in excess of 50 gallons, except for on-site heating, construction equipment storage, food processing and freezing, junkyard, automobile graveyard, recycling, light manufacturing, assembly plant, lumber yard, mill, manufacturing facility, newspaper and printing facility, sewage collection and treatment facility, solid waste transportation facility and terminal, yard, warehouse. Those are just examples. And it's not restricted to, but that's kind of gives you the flavor of what the expectation is. So you see, if you read through that, why you wouldn't want to have light retail shops in the same area.
What about mineral extraction?
On that site? That's a great question. You know, I don't think it was ever conceived that somebody would do mineral extraction on that site. Right now, the way the rules are set up, there is a mooring regulation. I don't think it's, I have to go through the ordinance in a little bit of detail to see if it's actually prohibited there. I don't think it's prohibited there. I'm not sure about that, though. Do you recall, Bruce?
I don't recall, you'd have to look at the chat.
Yeah, we have to go through the thing and figure it out.
Didn't you have earlier was
The resource, yeah, okay, let's go down to the resource tables then. So that would be transportation utility.
Keep going down, I think.
So. So it would be not, when I'm reading that chart, it would be not allowed for 10 acres. Wait, so it's not allowed? No, it's not allowed. That was the way it was set up in the first place.
As long as she keeps it under 5 acres.
Well, right. Well, no, because C is, okay, not in 1A, right, you're right. So it would be a tier 3. So as long as it was less than 5 acres, it would be allowed over there. I mean, I suppose the only thing that could be done in that particular situation would be to go through the overlay application process and apply to have an overlay over there. And I mean, it'd have to go through some hoops in town to get it rezoned to do that. But I think people never figured that anybody would want to make a hole there. I think people thought that they'd want to put another building in there.
It's 180 acres,
So
a lot of ledge, so.
I guess somebody would have to go through and look at making an overlay the way it's set up at the moment,
Or change that.
or change that at some future date.
Are you changing the ordinance now?
Well, right, but it's going to be the votes on July 1st. You would have had to, if you wanted to do that and make the change, you would have had to have had that, you know, in front of the board, and we would have had to discuss it and have it in here by the 45 days before July 1st. So that would have been the way to go about doing that. But like I said, back in 2009, 2010, and even earlier when stuff was sort of coming up being thought through, no one thought about that. Go ahead, Bill.
Don't you anticipate making more changes for the November?
Oh yeah, yeah, it's always subject to change. I mean, that's
Right.
it's just the procedural thing.
Right.
But I mean, clearly you have to get, the options would be, in either case, you'd have to get probably a good number of people behind making the change, either to get the overlay process done, you have to go through forget, that's like Article 4, I think, initiates that, or Article 3, I don't know, it's one of the earlier articles where it talks about how to initiate that process. And then that's how it has to be done.
As it stands right now, which one applies?
Tier,
Tier 3 or?
as long as you keep it under 5 acres.
Right, you could do less than 5 acres.
And that just means 5 acres opened up at one time.
Probably.
Well, it also says a limit of 250 cubic yards.
Remove or more, but less than 5 affected acres. And that would only be with code enforcement officer approval, so that would be, you know, considered to be a lower impact.
So, okay, so we're GMA 1B.
Correct.
Tier 3. So we're the second Tier 3? Moderate impact?
No, this
No.
is not in 1A or 1B.
Okay.
So you're in
So
lower.
you're there. So that's what that means. So you're there, so you could do it, you could do up to 5 acres of digging with code enforcement officer approval. But because you're in 1A and 1B, I mean, you'd have to get, in order to do this, you still can't do it. But if you weren't anywhere else, you could do it with a planning board permit, you know, and if you were here, you know, I mean, if it was more than 10 acres that you wanted to work at, you couldn't do it at all without having some kind of a change in the ordinance.
But, yeah. So, in GMA 1, you can do it with a permit from the plan board, but you can't do it in 1A or 1B with it.
Correct. 1A would be the densely developed area, and 1B would be that industrial area. I mean,
So the way that's written, GMA 1 is more liberal than GMA 1B.
correct. Because I think if you start looking at GMA 1 in total outside of the 1A area, then there starts to become more areas where I think there were some existing gravel pits anyway. So, I mean, it's kind of, that was, I think, the thought process. Again, you know, no one conceived that somebody was gonna want to dig that up. Nobody, I mean, and nobody, at the time that this was done, nobody came in and said, hey, you know, did you think about this? And so we didn't, and we just assumed somebody wanted to develop it, and we kind of in an ideal,
You know, not up front.
right? But I mean, in the perfect, in a theoretical perfect world, you know, that would be like, you know, like an industrial park, so to speak. You know, I think the other thoughts were at the time that there was a lot of discussion back in 2009 about the expansion of 395, East-West Highway, and things like that. I think that, you know, that played into some sort of industrial type of development, whether it be truck stops or that kind of maintenance activity, or some other sort of manufacturing where you could get on the road, you know, build it out here, get it on to a truck, and get it onto a high-speed access road. I think that was what was going on in 2009, 2010. That's why you should probably review your comprehensive planning stuff periodically, because stuff changes.
So we lost that.
Right, so that didn't happen. At the time, it seemed like it was imminent. That didn't happen, and so now, you know, that's probably not as likely as it would have been had that had happened.
But everything can change.
But everything can change, right? I mean, but, you know, you
The
try to...
killer is the $4 a gallon diesel fuel.
Right,
That's what kills everything.
right, right. Might be more now. ISIS has a fuel refinery
Yeah,
in Iraq.
today.
Down south, it's only $3.38 a gallon. The diesel,
Really?
yeah,
Pretty cheap.
dirt cheap.
So, commercial greenhouses.
That'll probably be okay there. I think, let's go back and look at commercial uses.
Go back to agriculture, commercial agricultural, slightly higher. That's non-commercial.
That's interesting. Oh, non-commercial, I'm sorry. That's even more interesting.
Yeah.
So not allowed.
Nurseries right there.
Right, but I mean, they're not, for some reason, back in 2009, it was indicated that it couldn't do it. That doesn't seem to make sense.
I think this right here was for like farms and growing vegetables in the field, not greenhouses.
So, what's this, greenhouses?
Yes.
I have a feeling if somebody came in and wanted to do an overlay and put greenhouses in, that probably would not get a lot of opposition. I have a feeling just based on what's been going on in the region, if somebody wanted to put in a quarry and do an overlay there, that might generate some attention.
You start off with a quarry and then you back off.
But I have a good idea that if somebody wanted to open an operation similar to that down in Skowhegan on that site, that probably would be pretty viable and probably generally get support. But I couldn't speak to the other.
So, I gotta say overlay.
Yeah, you could do an overlay if you want to do that. And again, just looking at that, doesn't even, looking at it now through, a lens of being able to discuss this, it doesn't seem like it was a good idea that in 2009, and we probably should have picked up on it this winter.
Plus, this is the first input we've had on that land at all down there.
Nobody's ever come in and even talked about that property,
I
ever.
never got any notice of a meeting. Someone called me from Clifton and asked me if I knew there was a meeting tonight.
Are you do you pay taxes on that land?
Yeah.
Just saying. We sent a notice out to all taxpayers.
You did?
Yeah.
Someone, my wife didn't tell me. But anyhow, someone called
Oh,
me.
yeah, blame it on the wife.
Yeah, it was in the newspaper, but not that anybody looks at the newspaper anymore. That's an arcane requirement. We've been trying to, a lot of towns are trying to get that out on the internet and,
When would it gone,
excuse me,
when would the notice have gone?
probably at least 2 or 3 weeks ago. Actually, you would have gotten 2 notices, because the one notice went out, you got a notice for the ordinance review and the vote on June the 10th. And then there was a second shorter notice sent out just like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, that's the, actually,
Joel, you ought to check with the office, see where your tax bill goes, if there's been an address change.
make sure they have the, yeah.
You get the tax bill all right, don't you? We want to make sure we get the right address.
So anyway,
The thing is, for something like a greenhouse, I would agree with Eric, there probably wouldn't be a lot of community opposition. So it's a matter of getting up a petition requesting a change.
I think it would
It's
go
not
right through.
impossible to do.
I mean, if you wanted to come meet with Rick during the week sometime, you know, he could walk you through how to do it. I mean, actually, we've never done one, but the instructions aren't that hard to understand on how to do it. I mean, you could go through. You know, just get a few signatures. I mean, something like that. I mean, I don't want to go as far as say it's a no-brainer, but I can't imagine why there would be opposition to something like that in Clifton.
Could you just look at that as the planning board and work with him to
Well, yeah, you
try
can come to a meeting and we could,
modify it, and then in November put an amendment to
we
this
could
again?
do that too. I mean, there's any variety of ways to go about it, depending on like if you wanted to get it started before November, you know, then he could just do an overlay and we could do it using the overlay procedure, you know, or we could just, you know, look at it this summer. You know, we have other things we need to do in November anyway, so we could just do it and change it in November for this activity. I mean, what we might want to do, you know, in fairness to all that, we might want to look at that, maybe move greenhouses to a different area or something like that, because I think, you know, looking at this in the bigger picture, why it doesn't say GMA 1, we could put GMA 1B only or something like that potentially, but I think that there was concern about, you know, raising animals and livestock, you know, on any of these other roads. I think that was probably a driver, you know, and then greenhouses and nurseries got slipped in there, and I don't think that probably was fault all the way through, to be honest with you. I mean, that's just probably the clearest answer. The focus was on livestock and not on greenhouses.
It's easy not to change.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different ways to go about changing it, just depending on how fast you want to move.
What is an overlay?
Basically, what you can do is if you have an activity that's not typically allowed in a zone, there's a procedure for coming in and doing an overlay, you know, over top of a zoning, an area, and we've never done one, but as I recall, I think, again, it's back in like Article 4 or something, you've got to go through, you've got to get a petition, and then you go through like a hearing process, and I forget whether the town has to vote on it or whether it's like a select board vote or something like that, but there's a procedure written out for it that I just would have to look up to do it.
We did start one, but he didn't follow through.
Right, we started, right.
I'll be well versed with it by the end of next week.
What's that?
I will probably be well versed in it by the end of next week.
Yeah, there you go. But that's the simple answer on that.
Does the town of Clifton belong to a group of towns that bargain with PERC?
I don't know.
I forget the name of the group, but
Are they a charter member? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah.
PERC has a charter, I'm not sure.
Well, when the town of Clifton, you have to pay for your dumping your trash at PERC.
Right.
Do you belong to a group that bargains for the disposal? Or do you deal directly with
No,
them yourself?
co-op kind
It used to be called.
There's a group called called MRR,
Right,
Main,
right.
Main Resource Recovery,
Does Clifton belong to that group?
I believe so. I believe so. Most towns do, they pay dues to be a negotiator.
We have, I know we have a contractor that comes in and puts in bids, what's it, every 3 years, right? So we run a 3-year waste disposal contract, and they come in and bid on it, and whether or not they have prices because they're part of some larger pool or not, I don't know.
Municipal
No, it would be
Review
through,
Committee.
the town would have, right,
It's Municipal Review Committee.
yeah, the MRC, I think is what
Yeah,
it's called.
MRC, Municipal.
So then there would be
Review.
basically a pickup price and then a tonnage price, if that was the case. The tonnage price would be fixed. In the case that you're talking about, if we belong to such a group, we'd only be we pay tonnage under one contract, and then we pay for the actual transportation under a second contract. So we'd be bidding with them for transportation, not for transportation and tipping.
The contract with Emera is expiring with PERC, and it's indicated that potentially landfills might become more attractive again in the future, because the contract that's being worked out between PERC and Emera looks like it's, because they're going to have to sell the electricity on the open market, it looks like that Emera is not going to be paying as much. So they're looking to potentially raise the tipping fees to all the communities. Could go up substantially.
But instead of a landfill, you have to start a recycling center.
Well, that's exactly what I'm thinking. If we're going to do, if that became an issue, I think I would hope that there would be some entrepreneurial people out there who could help get that recycling thing going at a little bit more local level. I mean, especially with all the global markets of where you can send recycled product now compared to where they were 10, 15 years ago. I mean, there's just a lot of markets for that stuff, but you have to have the right person and the capital investment to get into it in the first place. I mean, it's pretty substantive because you have to have something that can rip things apart, break it out, and then there's a labor part. You have to do a lot of sorting. So, I mean, somebody who's pretty smart has to open that up.
But
The
you have
center
to,
already does.
Excuse me?
The center already does. Over in Vanderbilt, they got a zero sort. They dump all the recycles in one bin, and they sort it out right there.
And that would be an option. I don't know how much we'd have to pay.
but you have to be careful on the other side because we're committed for so many tons to PERC. And if we don't give them that, we pay big fines.
Because that's what Brew's going through right now. They're not up to the tonnage anymore.
Merck is gone, The sister plant to Merck,
Yeah. Yeah, that's out in Biddeford, right?
it's gone.
Right.
Their contract ran out and
Things are always changing.
that's right.
It's a
I don't
moving
wanna get
world.
Too far off base, but
Yeah.
anyhow.
Well, waste disposal is definitely something that everybody needs to be more tuned into. So anybody have any questions other than that? Do you have any more questions on Article 13? I think there's a lot of options for you, and we'll definitely work with you. Kurt Davis said you did a good job too. He likes you. So if Kurt ever loses his job over there, he'd probably look at you for a job. He likes you.
Good guy to work with.
Anything else? Then I guess this little hearing is over then. You pack up because the select board's going to have to set up. Move tables around, set them up this way.
Got all comfortable now.
That area where the hangar was, I can't believe how fast the grass is coming up there. Yeah. We're done. Declare victory and move on.
No, we don't declare victory until July.
Oh, really? Well, no, it was good. People can't believe, the different view over there now. Because, obviously